What's up, witches?
What's up, witches?
I'm Linda,
And I'm John.
and this is Getting Witchy.
It is indeed. And it's been a long, hot time since, or a long, hot minute
Yeah,
since we did a recording. And, well, I mean, just
life got in the way.
life. Well, I mean, I don't know that it gets in the way, but life happens and then we procrastinate, or I procrastinate. And, the statement, we'll deal with it tomorrow and the next couple of days
Right.
becomes so robotic. But anyway, we're here. We haven't gone
Yes.
anywhere. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do for the next series because this episode is the last of this series of Pantheon, even though there are so many other pantheons we could do. I mean, there's literally excuse me, freaking 24 at least, if not 48 different pantheons that can be talked about. I mean, when you really get down to like the indigenous of a small island nation,
Right.
I mean, there's so many different.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah, we're not getting into that. We don't have the money for that. That would take travel, although I'd love it. I don't want to end up like, what was it? Hughes that got eaten by the cannibals? Not Hughes. Rockefeller?
I don't know.
One of them went exploring and trying to meet tribes that hadn't been met before or discovered before and ended up getting eaten by a
Yeah, I don't know about any of that.
cannibalistic. Anyway, so we're talking about the Sumerians tonight. And this for me is of particular importance. If you think about what the Sumerians have given to modern day society, they are credited with the contributions of writing, the original cuneiform. Before that, though, there was no writing, really. It was a mishmash. I mean, you had the Celtic or Icelandic ruins, okay, but there was no formal, like, it laid out a full freaking sentence or the laws.
Okay.
Early mathematics, including, well, I don't know how early this is, if it includes things like algebra and calculus. There are, sorry, okay. Astronomy, of course, the first cities and irrigation, and of course, with like was it the Hanging Gardens of Babylon?
Well, Babylon, if I recall correctly, Babylon
Yes,
took
it's
over Samaria.
after. Yes, it was that, but
the architecture and
the fact that like they had gardens in the desert.
They had irrigation and
the wheel,
the
the plow, and the concept of a structured government, again, laws.
Right.
And if you do this to that person, then this needs to happen to you.
Well, and not even just that, but a representative, somebody saying,
right.
Hey, this is.
Yeah, the attorney, wonderful that they are. So with the writing system, cuneiform, the earliest known writing systems, which was done on clay tablets, they used a little, it was a stick, but it was shaped in like a triangle. And with that, they formed numbers, letters, words, and complete freaking sentences and gave a description of shit like not anything before that had done. Mathematics, they created the 60 base system, which has been stated that it's based on their gods, which we'll get into in a moment. Their gods had 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 6 or 60 base system, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and on from that. They had advanced, we're talking 5,000 years ago, roughly,
Okay.
advanced knowledge of the solar system. They knew the planets and what the planets were, and it even beyond our solar system.
Mm.
And it just continued on from there. Agriculture, again, irrigation techniques to control flooding, because there was lots of flooding with the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And they figured out ways to control that to where they could maintain their farming. And then again, pass that down. Construction of large monumental buildings. If you've never seen a ziggurat, you need to look up ziggurat. It's and try to find like scale images with somebody standing at the base or standing at, because a ziggurat is basically a pyramid with a huge, maybe 50-foot to 100-yard ramp going up to it, to the top, similar to what's in Maya or the Mayan structures in Mexico, but at a more friendly angle, because the ones in Mexico are like more straight up.
Yeah.
Where this is more spread out, so the ramp is a little bit easier to go up. But anyway, the invention of the wheel, as I said, the plow, early tools like saws and harpoons. The first documented civilization to have all this. Now, I bring all this up because the one civilization that has brought all of that to our current world is disregarded on their religious beliefs. Everything that they wrote down, they created writing, and everything they wrote down about the gods, the Anunnaki, which means from those who heaven came down or something like that. We basically, we brush it off as insignificant. They were telling, they were telling stories or folk tales or whatever. But
considering how much effort it would take to write that down,
well, yeah, I mean,
why would they write down fairy tales?
Well, some of these cuneiform tablets, if you look, it's amazing. Like the tablets are literally this freaking big, and there's like not a whole chapter, but like a whole story of what's going on. Like, and there's thousands of them. Why would they do that just for fiction?
Well, they wouldn't. They would want to spend their time writing down what was significant,
Actually happening, important. What was happening, right? So, but we disregard what they talk about with the gods. Part of this series was to talk about how many of our ancient civilizations and ancestors spoke about beings that came to help, educate, and teach. The Sumerians, though, go a bit further than that. I mean, even the Native Americans, they're like the Star people came down to teach various things. With the Sumerians, though, it's straight up, they were ruling shit. They wanted gold. They wanted gold for this purpose, which was for their planetary atmosphere. And they were huge beings, like 2 to 3 times the size of a human, and that humans were created by them. And then if you look at the history, the Bible takes some of the stories from Sumerian myth and turns it into biblical writing. Anyway, I'm sorry. I really love the Sumerians. And so, like many in our ancient past, the Sumerians were polytheistic. And I apologize for my voice. I'm sick. I fucked my hand up pretty bad. Hope YouTube or nobody else blocks that. But yeah, I fucked my hand up pretty bad. And then I got sick right after that, within a week. So anyway, but we needed to get this done. We had this time.
Yes.
Boy's gone.
Yes.
Yes. So they believe that in a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each with specific roles and human-like characteristics. They were known collectively as the Anunnaki, which means those from heaven came. So I was pretty right. I think I misworded it a little bit. The Sumerian gods were believed to control various aspects of life, like all other religions. Among most prominent deities were Anu, which was the god of the sky. He was the main god, the ruler god. Enlil, which is the god of the wind and storms, the god assigned to rule the earth. And his direct counterpart and opponent was his brother Enki. Enki was a healer and liked humans. He liked what they had created and didn't like the fact that we were created in a way that inhibited our ability to become like them mentally, and like just the knowledge and everything. So there was a constant conflict between Enki and Enlil. And then the one that was called Inanna, which is interestingly similar to Esther. If you look at the history of the name or the word, like how it changes over time. Easter. Put aspects of the gods, she put aspects of the gods within humans. She was the goddess of love and war. And it was her DNA that helped create first humans, according to the Sumerian. But they also believed in, was it anthropomorphic. Sorry, I've had a couple adult beverages and some cold medicine, so I'm even more tongue twisted than normal.
Anthropomorphic.
Thank you. Polytheism, or of many gods in human form, but with animal characteristics, which you see all over their what we have left of their carvings and such. The core of their pantheon was An, or Anu, was heaven. Enki, a healer and friend to humans. Enlil gave spells, spirits must obey. That sounds interesting. Interestingly, like the Ring of Solomon that would control spirits.
I know nothing about that.
Well, I'm sure we've talked about that before, but that helped him build the temple. Anyway, he controlled the spirits. Anon, love and war. Atu, the sun god, and Sin, or Sin, the moon god. Did you want to? Their periods of history.
Okay. So in the Ubaid period, which was from 6500 to 4100 BCE, which stands for before Common Era. Apparently, we don't use before Christ and Anno Domini anymore.
No.
We use before Common Era and Common Era now.
I still prefer the other and usually say it that way. especially after watching one scientist talk about why we don't talk about it anymore, even though we use the same calendar that the BC and AD was developed after.
But anyway, so the Ubaid period saw the first settlement in southern Mesopotamia by farmers who brought irrigation agriculture into the area. It also included distinctive, finely painted pottery, which, I mean, up until that point was not evident.
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing. It's like all of a sudden Sumerian culture just appeared.
Yes.
Like with the pottery, the agriculture, the knowledge, like just literally out of nowhere, supposedly.
Right. The Uruk period from 4100 to 2900 BCE saw several transitions. One was that the pottery started to become mass produced, which I'm not sure that was necessarily a good thing, but
that means more of it.
Right, more of it. But with mass production, the quality kind of goes, at least in my opinion. Second was that trade goods began to flow down the waterways in southern Mesopotamia, and large temple-centered cities, which were most likely theocratic and run by priest kings, rose up to facilitate the trade, and slave labor was utilized.
Well, yeah, I mean, people seem to forget that, and I'm not condoning it or anything. So, I mean, my kids are half black, but slave trade has been going on and still goes on to this freaking day. But it's been going on for tens of thousands of years. You conquer a village, a neighboring village, and
right,
they become your servants.
Even the Greeks had slaves.
Yep.
That were their own people. So
it's not a pretty part of our history. And I wonder why. I find this, some people are so afraid of an alien incursion. I know this is kind of off topic, but I watched something today while I was sitting here sweating, trying to sweat it out. Why average humans or average Americans are afraid of an alien invasion? Well, historically speaking, on this planet, if a higher developed civilization came across a lower or lesser developed civilization, it usually didn't bode well.
Right. The lesser civilization would either be completely wiped out or they would become slaves.
Enslaved. And they're afraid of that happening because that's what we do to ourselves.
Well, maybe they should be better people.
Yes, they should.
Moving on, yes. We have the early dynastic.
You know how I get sidetracked. I'm sorry, guys, but
we have the early dynastic period, which ran from 2900 to 2334 BCE. In this period, we saw writing, which was in contrast to the pictograms of earlier. They became more commonplace and more decipherable. This was when the Epic of Gilgamesh came about and mentioned several leaders, including Gilgamesh himself, who were likely historical kings.
Yes, I mean, if you think about, and I'll be honest, I've only like scratched the surface of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and if you're trying to tell me that somebody like Shakespeare just decided to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of hours with a little triangle shaped peg and maybe a brick to tap in and doing the different clay bricks to tell us, no, they did not do that for fun. It was not. No, they were telling what they saw.
Yes, they were passing down the stories of what was going on at that time. The first dynastic king was Etana, the 13th king of the first dynasty of Kish. War was on the increase at this time, and cities erected walls for self-preservation. So this is about the time that all of the cities and the dynasties were starting to
Right.
put up walls to keep invaders out. Sumerian culture began to spread from southern Mesopotamia into the surrounding areas. During the Akkadian Empire period, which was from 2334 to 2218 BCE, many in the region became bilingual in both Sumerian and Akkadian. Toward the end of the empire, though, Sumerian became increasingly a literary language. So it's kind of like, I guess, the way Latin went. Like originally, like at one point, Latin was the major, and then it started to die out. And it was only literature. I mean, basically, where do you read Latin anymore?
Right. Except the Bible.
Or some sort of religious text. Yeah. Then we have the Gutian period, which was from 2218 to 2047 BCE, which was marked by a period of chaos and decline, as Guti barbarians defeated the Akkadian military but were unable to support the civilizations in place.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They got their ass beat, or they won.
They won, but couldn't keep
able
up
to maintain.
Yeah, they weren't able to support the villages that they
conquered.
overtook.
So the Sumerian Renaissance, the third dynasty of Ur, which is in the textbooks, at least the ones that I've read, it does not say the Sumerian Renaissance, the third dynasty of Ur. It just says Ur. 2047 to 1940 BC. Saw the rulers Ur, Namu, and Sogi, or Sogai, whose power extended into southern Assyria. However, the region was becoming more Semitic. And the Sumerian language became a religious language. So it was becoming more Semitic, what is typically identified with Semiticism. The Jewish population.
Right.
And many people say that the Jewish original Bible or Torah came from stories of Sumeria. And I mean, I'm not saying that that's what it was, but I mean, it's there in history. The Sumerian Renaissance ended with an invasion by the Amorites, whose dynasty of Asin continued until 1700 BC, at which point Mesopotamia came under Babylonian rule. Sumerians invented or improved a wide range of technologies, including, well, we've already gone over that, the wheel, the cuneiform script, arithmetic, geometry, irrigation, blah, 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 even sandals.
Yep, chariots and beer.
Yeah, the first mead, was created by them. So they're patron gods. Now that we've gone through like the history of them, and we didn't do that with the others so much. We did that a little bit, but not in as much detail as these, because according to archaeology and science today, this is the oldest civilization that ever existed on Earth. Even though they found things now like Göbekli Tepe?
Oh, Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That supposedly dates back older than Babylon and Mesopotamia and the Sumerians, but they're like religious things that they found, not whole cities.
Right.
The reason we've gone into it this far with this one is because it's such an old civilization, and because they offered so much to us that we still use it today, right, including making beer. And we just disregard their statements of who their gods were and what they did and how they did it and why they did it. We just brush it away, kind of like the Indians and the Hindu. Just anyway, sorry. Each city-state had a patron god or goddess who protected the city from harm and brought good harvests. There were gods of professions, so each profession had a special god or goddess who watched over them. As I mentioned earlier, the ziggurats, large structures at the center of each city, where the temples to the main god of the city were at the top of the shrine, and where only priests could perform rituals and sacrifices. Sumerians honored their gods by washing their statues before and after meals. Interesting. Offering food, drink, and incense, and donating part of their earnings or harvest to the temple. Gee, what does that sound like?
Tiny.
Yeah. Some of the main gods and goddesses, again, as I mentioned earlier on, the god of the heavens and ruler of the Anunnaki. He was the father of Enki and Enlil and several others. And An was the divine personification of the sky, king of the gods, and ancestor of many of the deities of ancient Mesopotamia religion. He was regarded as a source of both divine and human kingship, and opens what? Enumerations of deities in many Mesopotamian texts. So basically, they continued on with his lineage.
Yes.
Long after Sumeria was gone.
Yes.
Kind of like, well, never mind. I won't get into that. Kai or Ki, the Sumerian word for earth, was personified as a goddess and female counterpart to An. In Sumerian myth, An and Ki produced a variety of plants on the earth. Is that where you think milkweed comes from? Sorry, that was a bad joke, but funny. Enki, the Sumerian god of water, knowledge, crafts, and creation, as one of two that created humankind, and one of the Anunnaki. He was later known as, see, I hate when they do, so it's EA or AE. I don't remember how it's
either E or A.
No, it actually is a little bit more than that. It's weird how not trying to disrespect their language, but it's strange how it was pronounced. But I said A.
But we're talking about in the Akkadian religion.
Yes.
So
the name was rendered as Eos in Greek sources, which I remember seeing that in some writing that I did when I was doing research on Greek mythology and religion, because I just love like earth mythology. He was also a friend to humans, the one who wanted us to be more like our creators. Supposedly the one that not only gave us a soul, but gave us the ability to unlock the magic or power within our mind, whereas his brother Enlil was trying to keep that under lock and key. He did not want us to be able to become like them. He wanted us to be subservient to them always. So that was the conflict between the two. Do you want to go with Enlil?
Sure.
Even though I kind of already, sorry.
So Enlil was the chief goddess. He was in charge over the earth and all that occurred on the planet, and the god of winds and storms. He was later known as Elil or Elil or Ellil. He is an ancient Mesopotamian god associated with wind, air, earth, and storms. He is first attested as the chief deity of the Sumerian Pantheon, but he was later worshipped by the Akkadians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and the Hurrians. He is also believed to be the one that brought about the Great Flood because he did not like the fact that his brother was trying to make the slaves known as Atome, meaning man, to be like them.
Yeah, it's Adam, Atome, man. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Inanna, was the ancient Mesopotamian goddess of love, war, and fertility. She kind of reminds me of the Norse Freya.
Yes.
If you can't lay 'em, slay 'em. If she, she's also.
You're not supposed
Sorry.
to make me laugh.
I'm sorry. She's also associated with sensuality, procreation, divine law, and political power. She was originally worshipped in Sumer, and she was known by the Akkadian Empire, the Babylonians, and Assyrians as Ishtar, which is one source of the name for Easter. Her primary title is the Queen of Heaven. She is the second half of the team that created man with Enki, and it was her blood or her DNA, as you stated before, that completed that creation.
Right.
So it was her DNA that gave us our souls. Next, we have Utu, the god of the sun and justice. As the Sumerian sun god, he represented the brilliant light of the sun, which returns every day to illuminate the lives of mankind, as well as providing the warmth to enable the plants to grow. In Sumerian tradition, he was represented with a saw knife and fiery rays.
Okay.
Okay. Utu was the son of Nana, the moon god, and the twin brother of Inanna, the goddess of love and war. The principal temple of Utu, called Babar, or White House, was at Sippar.
That's an interesting coincidence.
The cult of Utu can be traced back to very early times. He was described as bearded and long-armed, and it is thought that he emerged from the doors of heaven at dawn and made a daily journey across the skies.
Sounds a lot like the Egyptian.
Well, and also the sun god from Greece.
Yes. Apollo.
No.
Was it Apollo? You're the Greek.
Yeah, it wasn't Apollo who drove the chariot, though.
But he is the sun god.
Apollo is the son of the sun god, I think. But there was another one who actually drove his chariot across the sky.
Gotcha.
And I can't, for the life of me, remember his name right now.
So Nana, the moon god or goddess. No, god. Sorry. Was the major astral deity, which I find interesting. This is the
Helios. Sorry.
Yes, Helios. I think this is the first occasion where a moon deity is a male.
No, I think the Chinese or Japanese had a moon god too.
But all the others are goddesses.
Yes.
Which I find interesting. So Nana, the moon god, was a major astral deity of the Sumerians, born of Enlil, and his wife Ninlil, the air goddess. Ninlil followed her mother's instructions. As a consequence, was impregnated by the water of Enlil. That's a nice way of putting it. And conceived the moon god Nana. Nana brought light to the dark lapis lazuli sky. What are they trying to describe there, I wonder?
Well, I mean,
anyway, the little ones, stars, were scattered around like grains, while the big ones, the planets, walked around the moon. It's an interesting story. Nana and his wife Nigal were the parents of Utu, the sun god, who was said to rise in the mountains of the east and set in the mountains of the west. Nana was one of the patron deities of the city-state known as Ur. My eyes are, can you?
Ninursag.
Right.
Do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay, so the goddess of fertility and motherhood. Ninursag is the Sumerian mother goddess and one of the oldest and most important in the Mesopotamian pantheon. She is known as the mother of the gods and mother of men for her part in creating both divine and mortal entities. She replaced the earlier mother goddess Namu, also known as Nama, whose worship is attested as early as Dynastic 3, which was 2600 to 2334 BCE, of the early dynastic period, which was 2900 to 2334 BCE. Ninursag had many different names given in various myths according to her particular role or the theme of the story. And she was originally known as Damkina or Damgalnuna in Sumer. She was a nurturing mother goddess associated with fertility in the city of Malgum. Her husband and consort was Sulpai, which was a minor god associated with the underworld, with whom she had 3 children. They were Osgi, Listen, and Lil. And she is far more frequently depicted as the wife and consort of Enki, who was the god of wisdom, among many other attributes.
Okay. And then there's Namu,
Mm-hmm.
who she replaced.
Yes.
It's an odd, I put this in an odd order. Anyway, the one who gave birth to the first deities, An, the god of heaven, and Ki, the earth goddess, and to many more of the ancient gods. So there was a mother to even the ruler god.
Yes.
And that's where it started to get really, because they're, yeah, anyway. And to many more of the ancient gods, Namu was originally a personification of the primeval sea. What does that sound like? Irish and Norse, a primeval sea as the beginning of the world and one of the mother goddesses. Her name is the same symbol as the one for fresh water, which came from Angor, which came from underground and had religious fertilizing properties in Sumerian culture. She was also believed to be the mother of Enki, the water god. The union of An and Ki produced Enlil. Oh, so Enki was
actually
older and
not Enlil's brother. He was more like his uncle.
Yeah. Again, with the whole, well, we won't talk about the Greek ones with the,
right.
Your cousin is your mother and your, okay. Gula. Gaia?
Yeah, it's Gula.
Gula. But close to Gaia. All it needs to switch out is the L for an I. Mesopotamian goddess of healing. She was known as the healer of the land. And the lady who makes the broken up whole again. Gula is strongly associated with dogs. It is said that a dog went with her when she acted against enemies. Okay. And then the last one.
Ereshkigal, the goddess of death and gloom. Ereshkigal ruled the land of no return, which was known by the names of Kigal or Urkala in Sumerian culture. There was an unbroken rule that anyone who entered the underworld was unable to return without producing a substitute.
Blood for blood. Body for body. Never mind.
What?
Well, I was thinking of the whole Jack Sparrow thing in Pirates of the Caribbean when he wanted to get away from, and he's like, you need to give me 99 souls or whatever it was.
Yeah. So the whole like switching out of the
buying your debt out. But anyway, that's off topic. So this is the end of it. The Pantheon of the Sumerians is even more complicated than any of the others. When I did the studying and research on the others, and then ended with the oldest known religion other than witchcraft, I mean, and there's nothing written about that. It's
Well,
been
no, because I mean so religion is what man created in order to understand the world around him.
right,
And that's as old as time itself.
right.
But
And
this is the first.
This is the first one that we have document where they wrote it down, and yet we disregard them when they talk about those from heaven came.
Right.
We just, right, it's make believe. They made it all up. But yet they gave us arithmetic. They gave us geometry,
astronomy,
the wheel,
the written word,
agriculture, you know, anyway. That's why this one was super important to me and why I've harped on some of that stuff, because we are disregarding an entire civilization that lasts for thousands of years and still contributes to us today just because they said someone came down from the heavens and taught us everything. Anyway, hope you guys have a great night. Hope you've enjoyed this series. I, again, apologize that it's taken so long for us to finish this. Procrastination is a bitch. And if you have any ideas on the next series we should do, because we're trying to toss some things, and we've been tossing some things around for a couple weeks.
Right.
But if you have any ideas, I mean, we're open to it. So.
Right. One of the ideas that we have been kicking around was the thought of doing a series on herbs, plants, and how they can be used in magic, but also healing, and herbalism, herbology, all that. But also we were talking about crystals too.
Yes.
So, if you've got an idea for a show you'd like to see us do, hit the button that says contact the podcast. Send us a note. We will definitely respond to you, and we'll look into seeing what we can do about it.
We'd love to hear from you.
We would definitely love to hear from you.
Again, thank you for your patience. Have a great night. Peace.
Happy New Year too, witches.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year. Hope you had a good Christmas.
Peace out, witches.